So, just to give you a little bit more information, what is the purpose of an interview? Again, we all know it is to meet face to face with the potential employer we do want to work for. Again, it's to elaborate more on the resume. Again, your resume is not the best tool to describe you more. So at least you're going to be able to go by face value. You're showing your soft skills. You're showing more of who you are. And again, it's an important point. It's for you to shine and for you to make a good impression to the employer. And again, it's to establish positive rapport with the potential employer who you will be working for.
Okay, so I wanted to throw out another question. What do you think interviewers are looking for in the candidates? So when you're going into an interview, what are the main things they are looking for? Again, I'll give a few moments for you to type in your responses in the chat. Good. So we have one, if you're a good fit, your soft skills, excellent. So perfect. Yes, so if the candidate is a good fit for the job, if you're a team player. Just giving a few more moments to, if you're a good communicator, yes. So you've all nailed it. So these are definitely things that the interviewer is looking for in a candidate that they cannot get from a resume. So they want to get an idea if you're a right fit or for the position, if you would fit into the company or the team culture, what you can contribute to the organization, what assets you can bring, and then also things that how motivated you are, how you compare to other candidates, and your enthusiasm. So these are all things that they will be assessing. So in addition to the answers that you give, these are things that they will be assessing in the interview, which many of you already know. So other areas that interviewers are looking at, so they're actually looking at your body language. So they want to see if you're projecting a positive body language, if you look professional in your tone of voice. So how you are composing yourself and conducting yourself in the interview is also important. So it's also important to be aware of these things when you're in the interview. So it's natural to be nervous, and if you find that you do certain things when you're nervous, like shaking your leg or clicking your pen, so it's just good, or twirling your hair, it's good to be aware of these things before you go into the interview, so that you manage to control it when you're in there.
All right. So for those of you who have attended an interview so far, what type of interviews have you attended so far? Either phone, face-to-face?
So we'll just give a few moments for people to type their responses.
Face-to-face. And we have, okay, face-to-face, phone as well, face-to-face, face-to-face. So yes, those are the primarily ones that are used, but we're going to go through a little bit more in depth as to the different types of interviews. So again, everybody has been through the telephone interview before. Again, it's used as a screening process. Usually the HR, recruiter, or even the manager themselves connect with you through the phone to just get a better idea and a better sense of who you are, to see if you are a qualified candidate for that position. Usually they ask you specific questions like, why do you want to work for this company? Or what are some skills you have to provide for this specific position you are applying for? Also, there is one-on-one, where it's more formal with the interviewer and the interviewee themselves. So basically, it could be one person just asking you questions. And again, it's more of a formal interview. And then Mona will explain the panel and group.
So usually the telephone interview is the first stage where it's the screening process, and then after that you would be invited either to a one-on-one interview or be part of a panel discussion. So the panel may be made up of, the HR manager, or whoever the hiring manager is, your team lead, or maybe even a colleague or somebody on the team that you'll be working with. So I'm sure many of you who've attended, those of you who have attended interviews in person, just type in your responses in the chat pod. Was it one-on-one or was it a panel? And how many people were in the panel if you did attend a panel interview? Usually panel interviews are 2 or 3 people. Okay, so most of you have attended just the one-on-one. Okay. Okay, so we have one person who attended a panel of 2 people. So if it's an organization that has, like, different level, like different hierarchy, or it may be you'll be working with multiple teams, they may have individuals from that you would be working closely with in that interview. So the panel can be so usually each person in the panel will be asking you a question, and then you'll just and then the other panelists will be writing their notes to your responses. The other type of interview, which is not common for many sectors, is the group interview. So you're not in the group interview, you're not the only interviewee. There are many other people interviewing for the same position. This is mostly used in retail. I also attended a group interview one time out of school in university. It was like a company that was coming in and wanted to hire a group of students. So they did a group interview just to see, and they gave us a scenario that we had to resolve. So they wanted to see how we worked in a team environment. So it was basically they were just observing your behavior in a team environment. Did you take the lead? Were you a good communicator? Did you listen? Did you did you overtake the process? So these are the kind of behaviors that they were looking for in a group interview. Again, it's not very common, and it's only used in specific industries.
And for Skype, which we all know what Skype is, sometimes Skype is used as another process of interviewing. It could be sometimes if you're overseas and the employer's here, sometimes they do have Skype interviews. Also, with Skype interviews, there's something known as Spark Hire, which there is others. There's either Breezy HR or VidCruiter or TalView. So basically, these are another other platforms virtually where they actually conduct interviews. So it's virtual. So basically, again, with virtual interviews, you have to make sure you are ready. You have a webcam, you have a mic or a headset. Sometimes it's better what they say to use. Also, again, dressing the part, because if you are on webcam, you have to dress formal still. Also, making sure you have a quiet area and no clutter in the background. It's a better idea to have yourself organized for these types of interviews. Sometimes with, for example, Spark Hire, they use it as a screening tool as well, where they pose 3 questions sometimes, but you have to record yourself with the webcam as well of how to answering these questions. And they could be simple questions that you get on a telephone screening tool. Tell me about yourself and why did you apply for this position? So again, you have to make sure you have the proper tools and be equipped for these types of virtual interviews as well.
Just to clarify, you're not getting a live person.
Both could be live.
It could be live.
It could be live.
Or
Skype
it could be
is
recorded
live.
For the video.
Skype could be live and the video could be live too. It depends which option they give, right? There could be 3 ways they do it. It could be recorded. It could be, 2 ways I should say, video conferencing where it is live. So you can have both ways in doing it.
And if you have any questions, feel free to type. Okay, so the things that you should be doing before the interview, before you go into an interview, is research, as all of you already know, is to research the company that you're applying to. And we also recommend that you keep a copy of the job posting, because then it would be easier for you to prepare the interview if you have a copy of the job posting in front of you. And finally is to know your resume very well, especially if you're applying to, you have two different types of resumes or for different types of positions and you're modifying your resume. You want to ensure that you know what you wrote on the resume for that particular position. And we'll go in a little bit more detail. So as a this is just one example. You may have your own way of preparing for the interview. So, so as a interview tool, what you could do from the job posting is identify what the employer requirements are for the position. And then from there, you would have a better idea of what skills you have that would match the position. And if you can think of examples of where you've demonstrated these skills from your past work experience, that would prepare you better for the interview. And again, we'll talk about this more in depth throughout the webinar. So more in terms of more preparation, you want to anticipate what kind of questions the interviewer will ask. So write out possible questions and answers. So they could be the very common questions that are asked in an interview, such as tell me about yourself, why should we hire you, questions like that. Other ones you also want to prepare for are situational or behavioral based questions. So again, you'll get a better idea of this from the job posting. So are you going to be handling multiple projects at the same time? Are you going to have to meet tight deadlines? Is it a client-facing type of position? So you want to be prepared to answer questions about how you interact with clients if you've dealt with difficult clients. So anticipating from the job posting and the nature of the job, you want to anticipate the kind of questions that they will be asking you and ensuring that you have examples from your past work experience.
And to add, another tool that would be really helpful is looking at the job posting itself and looking at the types of skills and job duties that is listed on the job posting, because sometimes you can create your own questions based on the job posting itself. And another great tool is using Glassdoor. Glassdoor also has another good resource where people actually write about the interviewing process and what types of questions to expect in the interview process itself. So it's another great tool. Glassdoor is another great tool to help you prepare for the interview. Because again, they talk a lot about the company as well as what potential questions the company can ask you. So the purpose of behavioral and situational questions, again, it's to focus on yourself, how you will handle different types of scenarios that you may encounter in the workplace, and how they handle similar situations within their previous work experience. So as Mona explained, if you are working, for example, with customers and clients, they will ask you questions based on how you've dealt with probably a difficult customer. How did you figure out and how did you problem solve that problem? Helps the employer to better understand the candidate through the process, assess their problem solving skills, self-management, and communication skills. Answering these questions will benefit the candidate because it gives them a chance to highlight their professional experience, abilities, and strengths to overcome challenges and reach their goals. Also, very important, sometimes when being asked these specific questions, you shouldn't use we. What did I do? It's very important because they don't want to hear what you were doing with the team. It's more of what did you do and how did you, again, overcome those difficulties in that specific situation. Did you have anything to add?
So how do you prepare yourself to answer behavioral and situational questions? So as we mentioned before, again, being familiar with the job description and highlighting all the soft skills that are featured in the job posting. In some cases, if you don't have a job posting, like for example, maybe you were referred to a specific position, or you know, then what you can do is just get a better idea of, look at the job title that you're interviewing for, and then just kind of try to, from your knowledge of what the job does, try to anticipate what kind of soft skills are necessary in that job and what they will be asking you about it. Especially if you've done that kind of work already before in the past, you probably have a good idea of what kind of soft skills are needed for that position. Okay, you want to make a list of, so from your end, from your past experience, you want to make a list of significant projects, team projects that you've worked on, or where you've worked on a team, and how you've demonstrated each one of those specific skills that they're looking for, or traits. So if you're a good communicator, you want to give an example of where you had to communicate effectively, or if you had to influence or work with various stakeholders and you had to negotiate, you want to give experience of where you used your influencing or negotiation skills to get something done. Okay. Also be prepared for negative questions. So they may ask you a question about, tell me about a time when you had to deal with a conflict, or tell me about a time when you missed a deadline, or you didn't achieve what you were set out to do. So just also be prepared for those type of questions. And again, you want to think of an example from your past experience, but then you want to end in a positive result, okay, where and you don't want to be blaming other individuals, but you just want to show that not everything happens the way it should be all the time, but what was the learning experience, or that you gained from this experience that you've applied in in other situations. Okay, so we're emphasizing a lot on, so when you're in an interview, you don't want to talk in vague terms. You want people remember stories. So if you can give specific examples from your past experience, that would stick out in the interviewer's mind the most, and they will be paying attention, because people like specific stories, and they will remember you more than somebody who answered things in a hypothetical or in a vague way. So when you're thinking of which examples to bring to the forefront in the interview, you want to think of something that is most recent, because that will be really fresh in your mind, and I think you would be able to be more specific if it is recent. You want to ensure, as Selena mentioned, that you are the star in the story. Even though it was a team effort, we want to know what your role in the team was in order to accomplish whatever it is that you had to accomplish. Also ensure that your examples are relevant to the position or what they're asking for. You want to ensure, again, that you have a few different examples, so if one example is not the most fitting, that you have something else to draw upon. It's difficult to have several, but if you have that experience, then that would be great. If not, then you try to make the best of what you have. And finally, you're going to use, how do you structure your response? So you want to make sure that you're not just rambling or telling the story from beginning to end. There's a specific structure that is an effective way to tell your story in an interview, and that's the STAR technique. How many of you have heard of the STAR technique? If you have, can you say yes and tell us what it means? Okay, so we have a few people typing. Perfect. Yes. Shubrit got it. So situation, task, action, and result. So this is, it's a very easy acronym to remember, and it's a very effective structure for answering behavioral-based interview questions. Okay. So we're going to give an example for a question about, tell me about a time when you worked on a team. How do we use?
So to just give you a brief idea, situation and task give a little bit of background information, as what Mona said, to help the interviewer understand the context of the project. Again, we have to keep it short and concise. So the goal is to keep the entire answer to 1 to 2 minutes. Again, don't overthink it again, and you don't want to sound rehearsed when answering these questions. But again, just keep, keep in mind the time as well, right? And you'll want to spend more time on the A, which is your action, and the result section more. So again, your approach, so as we said, what did you do? What did I do? Talk about the key action that, of course, you have took and taken. The focus should be on working with others itself, right? Working well with others. And again, tip, make sure that you are playing up the team aspect of the project. Who did you collaborate with, and what steps did you take to make the team dynamic work? So again, what did you do? So the result, again, it's very important when explaining, or when you have the result, is to have quantifiable data if you can. It's very good to show numbers, right? So wrap up your answer by describing the positive result of your action. So as we can see, the outcome can be quantifiable. If it can't, it's okay, as long as it's positive, right? So reduce processing time by 50%, brought in 50,000 in additional revenue, or the client told my manager that I was fantastic. So any story that ends with a promotion is a winner. You may describe a positive feedback you got from a client and a senior level team member. So again, pick a story with a dramatic ending. And it says it does not always have to be a possible end with a promotion or big money new account. Again, as long as it's positive. So if you don't have a number for it, it's fine, as long as it is positive.
So we have an example here about tell me about how you worked effectively under pressure. So this example, this person answered, I had been working on a key project that was scheduled for delivery to the client in 60 days. So here the person explained what the situation was. So they had a key project that was scheduled for delivery to the client in 60 days. So then my supervisor came to me and said that we needed to speed it up to be ready in 45 days while keeping our other projects on time. So that was the task that was at hand for this individual. So now we get into the action part. So I made it into a challenge for my staff, and we effectively added a few hours to each of our schedules and got the job done in 42 days by sharing the workload. So this was the action that this individual took in order to ensure that they got that project done ahead of time. And of course, and then this was this is the action, and then the result was that he got it done in 42 days by sharing the workload. And of course, I had a great group of people to work with, but I think that my effective allocation of tasks was a major component of the success of the project. So he's just wrapping up, you know, and emphasizing that it was the action that he took to ensure that the project was successful.
So here's another example. How do you handle a challenge? Give an example. So here's the situation. One time a supervisor needed to leave town unexpectedly, and we were in the middle of a touchy negotiation with a new sponsor. Task in action. I was tasked with putting together a PowerPoint presentation just from the notes he had left and some briefing from his manager. Of course, the result. My presentation turned out successfully. We got the sponsorship, and the management team recommended me for an award. So as you can see, it's short, sweet, and concise.
They may ask you follow-up questions. So just be prepared to elaborate if they do ask you that. So that, in a nutshell, we focused more on the behavioral situational questions. For those of you who are in technical roles, you probably already know how to answer those technical questions. So a lot of the technical questions will probably be asked in the telephone interview or in the screening process, just to ensure that you know what you wrote in your resume.
And another good note too is to also, it's okay to have notes in the interview, but again, don't read off the paper. Just to have brief points so you don't forget also, and it's a way of you just remembering what the key types of information you want to provide for that question.
Does anybody have any questions so far? Had a very attentive group. No questions? If you have questions, you're welcome to type at any time. Okay. So dressing professionally, we won't spend a lot of time on this because we assume that that you're all professionals and you know how to dress, because I'm pretty sure that dressing for interviews abroad is similar to dressing for interviews here. So here we just have, just some pictures of how to dress professionally. So it's just safer to go either formal or business casual is the norm for most type of positions. There are exceptions for certain professions, but this is usually the norm.
All right, so interview do's, relax. I know that's a really funny one, but again, I think everyone feels nervous and it's fine, but again, in a way, you just have to go with it, and you will figure out ways and start to get comfortable when answering these questions. Again, it's about you, right, and what you have done. Dress nicely, which you already know. Choose appropriate attire. Check personal hygiene, which we already know. Check appearance in the restroom before you enter the interview. Double check directions. I know Mona has a good story for that one. I'll let her explain. But again, it's arrive 15 minutes before the interview, and the interview starts the minute you walk in through the front door. So basically when you meet the receptionist or anytime you walk in, professionalism is very important. Be friendly and courteous to everyone you meet.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that you check the directions beforehand. So I made a mistake. I had an interview downtown. And I checked the directions the night before on Google, and it said, yeah, it would take you approximately 30 minutes to get there if you take public transit. But the mistake I made was that I didn't check the time. So I checked it at night, but I didn't check how to get there for the time of my interview, which was during rush hour. So my interview was downtown during rush hour, and I was using public transit, and I did not anticipate that I would have to wait for 3 or 4 subways at Yonge Station. I didn't know that I would have to crush myself in the in the subway, and I was not willing to do so. And I had to wait for 3 or 4 trains before I could get on to the next one. So just if you're going to be checking directions, make sure you're checking the directions for the time that you are going. And if you are going downtown during rush hour, you want to give yourself double the amount of time to get to that interview. I barely made it to the interview on time, but with hindsight, I should have used common sense that I was going downtown during rush hour, and I should have given myself even more time. And if you're using public transit, in Toronto especially, there are always subway delays. So you also want to take that into consideration. It's very common to have delays on the TTC. So just take that into consideration and give yourself extra time. And if you arrive early, go for a coffee. Just sit in a cafe or something like that, and go over your notes.
So just for a quick question, Calvin says, how do you answer those questions that you don't have experience with? Good question. With those types of questions, I think it's better to basically you can say, if I were to deal with a situation of that sort, if you don't have the experience in it, you can say A, B, C, D. It's better to try. There's questions before I really did not have experience in, but I would just say, I haven't dealt with a situation like that as yet, but if I were to deal with the situation, I would do this, this, and this. Mona, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that's a good way. Or maybe there's something, yeah, and maybe you would just, if you know that you're applying for a position and they're not everything you're qualified for, then you may want to do some research ahead of time into, okay, what are the things that are needed for, for this. For example, I once applied for, a program coordination role. I didn't have experience coordinating programs. I had experience coordinating events, so I could use those transferable skills from the event coordination or coordinating volunteers into the program coordination. And in addition to that, because I didn't have that experience, I also did a little bit research in what components are involved in program coordination. That I could also mention, just to show that I've done a little bit research into what's involved in the process.
And then one more question: what are the things that should be included in an elevator pitch? Again, with the elevator pitch, it should be short and sweet and concise. But if you want to really know about the information that goes in the elevator pitch, it has to be, starting off, it's, if you want to say, an outline of your resume. But again, you're not touching, or you're not explaining it very detailed, but again, you're providing more of an overview of yourself. Like, it could be very brief by just saying, I have over 5 years experience within the IT industry. I'm thinking of this on top of my head, so I'll give you some time. Over 5 years of experience in the IT industry, working in so-and-so industry. I have experience with these specific technical skills, blah, 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 blah. And basically, making sure that you're explaining the relevant information that is needed for that specific type of field. But again, you want to start to also think of what is something that differentiates you from those other candidates or those other people who are applying for those positions as well.
And then you could also add, so when you are outlining your experience, the key experience and skills that you have for that particular position, how you intend to use those those skills for the benefit of the organization. We will go when we have a little video about Tell Me About Yourself, which is like your elevator pitch.
Yeah. So what to bring to an interview? Again, you probably already know this: 3 hard copies of your resume, references, and of course pen and paper. Letter of recommendations from past employers if you have that. Certificates, license, samples of your work, list of job-related questions that you may have, and again, list of questions you will ask the interviewer themselves. So again, with these questions, you want to make sure at least you have 2 or 3, and you want to make sure they're questions that you would not find on their website, right? And we'll explain a little bit more as to what type of questions you could ask as well. And here we go. Possible questions to ask employers.
So again, you want to show that that you're insightful as well. So maybe there's some things that you want to ask about. There are some clarification questions that you want to ask about. So if it's really important to you what their hours of operation are, let's say you have children, you need to drop them off before and after school or to daycare, and this is something that's crucial for you when applying for the position, then it's okay to ask clarification questions about the hours of the position or the hours of operation. You could ask what kind of qualities they are looking for in an employee, in addition to what they're asking for, but what are the key qualities that they're looking for that would make an employee a good fit in the team, if it's not already answered in the questions from the interview. You could ask maybe, if you would love to move up in the organization, maybe you can ask about opportunities for growth within the organization. Management style of the organization is okay to ask as well. Tour of the facility is not very common. It really depends on the type of work that you're applying to, and of course you should be asking when you'll be making a hiring decision. They may ask you about salary initially in the screening, just to get an idea of what your salary expectations are. It's usually not a good idea to ask about salary in the interview process, again, unless this is something that you have multiple offers and it's something that's really important to you, that you want to know what the salary, maybe instead of asking what the salary is, but you could ask what the salary range for the position is if they have not advertised it.
Oh, we just have a question. Do you recommend that we always ask when they will be making a hiring decision? If yes, and why?
Usually they mention after the interview when they will be making a hiring decision. If they don't, then you want to, it's a completely valid question, and you also should know, when to expect a response. And if they haven't specified not to follow up, then maybe you could follow up with the interviewers afterwards, just to see if the position has been filled or if they've made a response, if they've made a decision yet.
So don't forget, again, to call your reference and inform them, or they know that they will be receiving a call after the interview. You shall send a thank you letter. For a thank you letter, we do have an example on our goodbye page that you can use as your own template, your own sample. You can use it. Please feel free to use it. So it's another great idea to not to forget to send a thank you letter. Very important to do it very early after the interview. And again, with your references, to make sure you do call your reference to inform them that they might be receiving a call from the specific employer. It's good to also, with your references, send them a resume just to refresh their memory about your employability skills. If you have a job posting, it's a good idea to send that as well to your reference so they know what they're speaking about. They know some of the types of questions the employer might be asking them.
Yeah, so it's very important to inform your references ahead of time. So when you get a call for the interview, just let your references know that you're going in for an interview, and they may receive, a call from this interviewer. And as Selena mentioned, yes, it's important to just prepare your references as much as possible so that they can talk about you effectively to the employer.
So we just have a new question here. As we are new to Canada and do not know what salary we should be asking if the interviewer asks us, what should we tell them?
Yeah, you should do your research ahead of time. So there are so many different tools that you can use just to get a salary range. So from LinkedIn to Glassdoor,
Job Bank,
PayScale, even Workopolis, they all have a salary. So just you can get an idea of what the market in Canada, not for the US, for Canada is offering. Usually the salary range depends on your years of experience. So if it's on the lower end, it's usually if you've had like 1 to 2 years of experience, and then in the middle range is when you have a little bit more, and then the higher end of the salary is when you're in the senior position. Also, it might depend on the industry that you're in. So for example, let's say you're a software developer, maybe in the not-for-profit industry, the salary range might be a little bit lower than, let's say, you were to be in the corporate. But yeah, if Glassdoor is a very good tool to use. Some people actually post the salary that they were offered, or that the position posted for a specific, so they post the salary for a specific position. If it's usually a larger company, they will let you know. So there are many tools online that you can use to help you get an idea.
And then after the interview, when can we send a follow-up email if no time frame had been given? Also, if no response is received from the HR hiring manager, is it okay to ask again? So with that, again, it's better to send, if you want, usually a follow-up email can be a few days after. But if they don't respond, so that becomes an iffy question. So you could send an email again, but usually I wouldn't say to send an email again. I'd probably just leave it as is, because again, you don't want to come off to the employer as pushy. That's the thing. And you want to make sure you're using your, I guess, your discretion to it as well, right? And that's the important part too. When the interview is complete, it is a good idea to ask, when will you be making that hiring decision, right? And also, when will you be hearing back? That's the most important question to ask during that interview as well.
Most of the time, don't expect to hear back from the interviewer. So the purpose of the follow-up and the thank you and the follow-up is that you can draw extra attention to them, and just to show that you're really interested in the position. If they don't respond, then move on. Maybe they just haven't made a decision and they can't give you a response yet. But usually, if like 2 weeks have passed, then just move forward. Yeah. If you've done on your part, I wouldn't harass the employer. Mm-hmm. Just you did your part just to show your interest, and then you move on. One thing about the thank you letter is that you're not only thanking the interviewer, but let's say there was a question that you didn't, that you forgot, there was another point or something else that you wanted to emphasize or elaborate upon. It could also be used as an opportunity for you to elaborate on something that you failed to elaborate in the interview. It shouldn't be too long, but just some pointers of some things that you wanted to emphasize or you wanted to bring up in the interview. So you can use the thank you letter for that purpose as well.
Interviewers don't, again, we already know this, overdo cologne, perfume, and aftershave, because sometimes with scent-free environment, it's very important to not, because you don't know where you will be walking to, right, or having the interview in. Comment negatively on past employers. and also wear extreme facial piercings or a lot of jewelry. Again, you want to keep it very simple.
And tattoos, which is so it's better. Although tattoos are becoming they're very mainstream right now, but just to play it on the safer side, you may want to hide tattoos. And the thing with the scents is that a lot of people are allergic or very sensitive to scents, so you don't want to put them off by just keep it to yourself and ensure that nobody else can can smell it on you.
So after the interview, it's just repetitive again. So again, list the questions that you were not prepared for, so you can practice them before you before your next interview. So again, it's a good idea to jot down questions you were not able to answer, because you can always practice it, because you never know if you can get it into another interview. Follow up with references to advise them of the outcome and thank them for providing a reference for you, as well as sending the interviewer a thank you note. So basically what we were saying.
So we mentioned this already about the interviewer thank you letter. So again, you can also send an email afterwards, which is probably more common. So you just want to keep it short and simple, maybe touch upon some interesting things that were mentioned in the interview, elaborate on something that you wanted to, and of course you want to express your enthusiasm for the job. And again, we'll have a sample template that you can download at the end of this.
All right, so tell me about yourself. So this goes back to the elevator pitch. The employer is seeking what your traits are as an employee, what your career goals are, how your background fits the job you are applying for. Answer strategy, again, do not go into your life story. Prepare to mention 2 or 3 things you want employers to know about you that will give you an edge in the hiring process. So again, you want to pick things that are very different, that will set you aside from other candidates. Remember to sell yourself, touch on your qualifications, skills, and attributes, and how they will relate to the position you're applying for. So I'm going to show you a great example, a video, of how to answer the tell me about yourself.
Please tell me about yourself.
Let's see. I believe I have a very solid background in medical assisting. I earned my degree in medical assisting, where I learned valuable skills such as taking vitals, administering injections, explaining treatment procedures to patients, preparing patients for examination, and assisting the physician with examinations. While earning my degree, I worked in customer service at ABC Pharmacy for 3 years as well, where I gained valuable communication skills and learned how to address customers' needs, which enables me to relate and effectively communicate with patients and their needs. I also completed an internship at a health clinic while in school, where I picked up more valuable skills, including updating patient files and medical records, handling correspondence, scheduling appointments, arranging for hospital admission, and help make sure the office ran smoothly. These are all valuable skills which I will hopefully be able to apply to this position and bring to your office.
Remember, when answering the question, tell me about yourself. Keep it professional.
So hopefully you all were able to see the video. Again, if you were not able to see the video, we have the web links on our goodbye page, so you can take a look as well. So again, as you can see, it's very short and concise. She mentioned a little bit about her experience, about her internship, and how it is relevant to the position she was applying to. All right, and
okay. So another question you may encounter is, what is your greatest weakness? So you'll find a whole slew of advice online about how to answer this, and usually the one that's given is that I'm a perfectionist. Most people can see over that it's not really sincere. So you want to, how to best to answer this question is that you want to give a skill or something that's not very essential for the position, and outline it using this technique, the WAR technique. So similar to STAR, but what you're going to outline is the weakness. So that's a non-essential skill for the position. What actions are you doing to work on that particular weakness to improve? And give an example of some results. So the actions you take in place, what were the results? Were they effective? And we have another video just to show you an example.
I used to have a problem with public speaking. However, in order to overcome this, I signed up for a class in public speaking and speech writing, as well as a course in professional development while working towards my degree. During my coursework, I was responsible for addressing an audience of at least 30 people on a weekly basis, and quickly became comfortable doing so. I even started volunteering to speak at team meetings in my last position, which led people to start coming to me for leadership. I am now able to confidently give presentations to large groups, and it has also made me a more effective communicator.
So remember, when addressing
So in this video, she focused on her public speaking, her fear of public speaking, and what she did to work on it. So it wasn't entirely essential for her position. And you may want to just go over some things that are not essential, or maybe you can think of an example from your past experience of where you did improve something, like improve yourself in order to be, more effective.
So usually all the time, you might get this question: why did you apply for this company? This is we think it will be very easy, but again, it could be very tricky, because this is where research is very key when applying to a specific position. So again, your answer could include one or several of the following: company's general reputation, admiration of product and services, admiration of the company's initiative, marketing campaign, community involvement, the company's management philosophy, their values, and their growth or success. So again, very important to research the company. And it's really important to look at what their mission is, what their values are, in order to, again, relate it as to why you want to apply for that company, because you might have the same values and the same mission as this company. So to give you an example, this organization is internationally known for the technology products you create, and my experience in technology and developing new products has me intrigued by this position. I saw that last year you won multiple awards for the new processor you designed, and I would love to be on a team that is collaborative, hardworking, and resourceful. So as you can see, this person did the research. They noticed that they received a specific award for this new technology they created for this company.
Okay, another question you will probably encounter is, why should we hire you? Especially if we're the modest type, this is a very difficult question to answer. I know I've been stumped on this question before. But you just focus on the positive traits that you have, and how you can honestly make, maybe it's the motivation that you have, maybe you have a specific niche skill, or a combination of education and experience, that so you have the theoretical and the actual experience. So just think of, what assets you have to bring, so that you could, that you would be able to answer this question more effectively. So what the employer is seeking to know about you is to find out what you know about the organization, and if you would stay, to see if your qualifications fit the requirements in the culture, and to find out if you are genuinely interested in contributing to the company. Okay, to determine if you are a good fit. So especially if you are applying, as newcomers to Canada, usually the type of positions that we are applying to, you may be overqualified for the position. So you especially want to show, that your motivation and your interest in the company to grow, to start off in this position and to grow within the company. Okay, so this is where your company research comes in handy. So you have to demonstrate what you know about the organization, compliment them about certain things that they, like if they're a big organization or if they're well known, then you may want to compliment what you know about them. And it also just shows your enthusiasm. So an example here, in my 10 years of experience as a sales manager, I have developed strong motivational and team building skills. I was twice awarded Manager of the Year for my innovative strategies for motivating employees to meet and surpass quarterly deadlines. If hired, I will bring my leadership abilities and strategies for achieving profit gains to this position. So this person mentions how many years of experience they have, also what kind of soft skills they have that complement the years of experience. They've mentioned, what they've achieved and how they are willing to bring that to the new position. So that's one way of answering the question.
All right, so we're now to the questions now. I know that we do have a few questions here that we didn't answer. And it starts off, where are we? From Sahil. If we do not want to quote a range, can we say whatever the company offers us? If it's posted on the job posting, sure. You can, if it's posted.
I wouldn't, yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I wouldn't recommend saying, whatever
your offer yeah.
Me. You don't want to come across as desperate. You want to come across as someone who's done their research and knows their worth, right? So otherwise, you don't want to be walked all over. So it's good to do your research and provide that range.
Yeah. Unless stated on the job posting.
If it's stated and it's fixed, then
it's easy.
It's easy. If you think you're worth more, and and
you can challenge.
You can negotiate and you're good at negotiating, you can see if that, but I wouldn't do that in the first round. Maybe if they invite you to a second or third round and you get an idea if that salary range is negotiable and they really want to have you because you're an excellent candidate, then I think you're in a good position to negotiate.
And then how to prepare a smart resume. So you know what, I'm going to go through the services we provide. I think that's a really good key point to make now. So for our services, PrepCan Online Newcomer Information Center, again, we provide you with support on the resume. We provide you with a lot of information and resources. We actually go through the resume with you, provide you with a lot of critiques, and also helping you understand the importance of targeting as well the resume. So in order for you to join our program, again, you have to be a resident of Ontario, either a permanent resident, convention, or Fiji, of course, at least the age of 16 years old. Access, again, to the internet or phone, which you can see as well because we are virtual. Ability to use internet, and if you are interested and you follow within these criteria, you could register with us through http://prepcan.ca registration form, which Zane, thank you, has posted the link for us on the chat pod. And again, if you want more information and you're not sure about the registration process, you can again contact us through our email, info@niconline.ca. Either myself or Mona will connect with you. Doesn't mean I'm still answering the questions. I just want to go through that piece with you. Also, There is a question. Unfortunately, while you answered for my question above, I lost connection. Oh, okay. If possible, can we please tell how often can we follow up with the HR hiring manager if they aren't responding?
I personally would just do it once. So I would just, after the interview, just follow up with them once, and then leave it at that. Unless they, the interview went really well and they promised you or something like that, you may want to follow up with them again. But you will have an idea of what kind of rapport you established in the interview. I think just as a general operating thing, maybe just follow up with them once. You send your thank you, and then you could follow up with them one more time, but don't, because then people will they're very busy.
So again, we just want to thank you all for joining us in our webinar, but we're still staying on the line to answer if there's any more questions. But we just wanted to make reference. We have our resources here on this page as well with the thank you letter, some interviewing questions, which is a really great tool to help you get prepared for the interview. So there's like 500 interview questions. Please take a look. Also, there is an interview skills handout, which is really helpful and essential when you are studying for an interview. Also, the videos we just showed on this webinar, there are links to it as well. Also, we would like you to rate our webinar. It gives us a better idea if we would need to change or enhance our webinar as well. So please do rate our webinar, which will be really grateful, appreciated. And if there is any more questions, please do type in the message pod.
Yeah, we understand it's past 11, but we will stay on for additional time to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, everyone, for your feedback.